I'm Colleen Bierstein, the Smart Cookie Cook, and today I would like to share with you guys some of my Polish heritage. I'm almost completely Polish, and I'll tell you something, nothing says Polish like homemade pierogies. It was always a special treat when my grandmother would make homemade pierogies from scratch, but the process takes so much work. Definitely a process that's worth the effort, but you gotta have the time to spend in the kitchen. You gotta make the homemade dough from nothing, you make the filling, you put the pierogies together yourself and fry them, and I'll tell you what, they're absolutely incredible. It's nothing like those frozen things, sorry excuses for pierogi you get in the grocery store. This is on a whole nother level. But me being a college student, I don't have time to spend the whole day in the kitchen making homemade pierogies. So what's the next best thing to do? I'll tell you. Pierogi Casserole. Now if you're asking yourself, could such a thing be real? Yes it can. Believe me, I was just as astounded as you are. But Pierogi Casserole is as real as the day is long. So, if you're wondering, how do you put pierogi in a casserole form? No, we're not going to stick little individual pierogis in a casserole dish and call it a day. We're going to take a pierogi and we're going to deconstruct it, put it into casserole form. You have layers of pasta, lasagna noodles, just like would be encompassing the pierogi filling. Then you have this incredible, cheesy, buttery, decadent mashed potato filling. And you keep layering that with the noodles. Cover it with another layer of cheese, just for good measure, and bake it in the oven. And I'll tell you what, you grab a big mound full of it, and it tastes just like a pierogi. And it's in this strange new form. How can it taste so much like a pierogi without actually being like a pierogi? Because you have the exact same component, just in a different form. And we do kick it up a little bit with lots of butter and some delicious sweet fried onions. So if you're as hungry as I am, then let's get started on this casserole. So the first thing we've got to do is get our filling constructed. Now I have here 8 Yukon Gold potatoes. I've boiled them, made them nice and fork tender, and they're quartered. And we've got to mash them together with lots of cheese and lots of butter. So what kind of cheeses are we using today? Well, a rather unlikely contender for today is Velveeta. It's going to be super creamy and yummy in this, but then we're also going to add some sharp cheddar so we really get that flavor kick that sharp cheddar always brings to the table. So I'm going to use 4 ounces of the Velveeta. I'm just going to cube the Velveeta really quick, make it easier to melt it. Okay, and then we'll add it to our potatoes. And then I'm also going to do the sharp cheddar. Lastly, prepare yourselves for this, guys. Whole stick of butter going in. I know, you can just feel your cholesterol rising. Live a little, you know? Okay. Now we're going to mash it together. So what I'm doing now is these are almost completely mashed, but I'm going to add in a little bit of garlic because, let's be honest, garlic makes everything taste even more delicious. Now, I know garlic isn't traditionally in pierogies, but it does add a whole new level of flavor to this dish. It's going to take it up to the next level without interfering with the classic elements of the dish. I'm also going to add in a tiny splash of cream, or you can use milk, just to loosen it up a little bit. Now let's beat this baby. Okay, so our potatoes are all mashed together with all that good stuff in there, and we're going to try not to eat it right now. We're going to wait till it's in the casserole. Now lastly, I'm going to fold in some onions. This is just 1 onion that's been sauteed in the pan with 2 tablespoons of butter until it's nice and soft and almost verging on the side of caramelized. And fold these in. This is going to add great flavor to this dish. That is just a bowl full of buttery heaven. The onions sort of help to balance things out too. They add a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of that powerful onion tang, so it's not just potato. So now I need to go boil some lasagna noodles, and then we can layer our casserole together. Okay, so I have my boiled and drained lasagna noodles here. I'm going to put them back into the pot that we cooked them in. Slide them on. And now we are going to melt 2 tablespoons of butter onto the lasagna noodles because, you know, butter makes everything better. Okay. And I'll just mix that in. And I'm going to warn you though, there's a lot of butter in this dish. So if butter scares you, well, you might want to stay away. But as decadent as this is, it's delicious. And I'm not asking you to make it every single night for dinner and send yourself into an early grave because you had a heart attack, but just every once in a while you gotta treat yourself. So I have our baking dish here and I sprayed it with a little bit of nonstick spray, and we're gonna start off with a layer of the lasagna noodles. So just grab yourself a noodle and we're gonna place it down in here. Now you may have the problem, depending on what pan you're using, your noodle's too big. If you cut it down, it's easy as that. So we're just gonna make a little blanket of noodles on the bottom. I'd like to sleep with a blanket of noodles at night. Okay. So the bottom of the pan's covered. Now we're gonna add a layer of the potatoes. Just plop them down on there good. Okay, just gotta spread this out in a nice even layer. Okay, now we're gonna add another layer of noodles. No, I'm not even cutting anymore, I'm just ripping right in. No one's ever gonna know but you guys. But you won't tell, will you? Alright, now let's finish up with a topping of potatoes. I actually made this dish last summer for my grandparents when I went to visit them. They live in Florida, the lucky devils. But it's kind of funny because she's made homemade pierogies for me for so many years, and now it was like I was sort of making them for her, even though it's a little bit different. Alright, once you have those noodles good and covered by the potatoes, you're just about good to go. Now, I say just about because, well, we gotta add a little bit more cheese on top just for the presentation. Look, if you're really that concerned, just leave it off, but I love the look of melted cheese on top. Now this baby's ready to go in the oven. We're gonna bake it at 350 for 20 to 25 minutes until it's nice and warm all the way through and that cheese melts on top like a sea of gooey goodness. I'm just gonna cover this so the cheese doesn't melt before we can actually cook the casserole through all the way. And we'll get this in the oven. Give it about 20 to 25 minutes, and let's hope I can wait that long. Okay, we're into our last couple of minutes of cooking. I'm going to take our cover off so that we can make sure the cheese gets good and melty in the last couple of minutes. Woo! I always get so excited around this time. I have just gotten our casserole out of the oven, and my goodness, would you take a look at this bubbling beauty? Look at how nice and brown the cheese has gotten on the top. Oh, I am dying to dig into this. I'm going to grab myself a plate and get myself a huge hunk of this pierogi casserole. Can you hear it sizzling? That's the pierogi talking. It's saying, I'm delicious. You've got to have me right now. And I'm not one to argue with the pierogis. So I'm going to get chowing down. I suggest you grab yourself the recipe and do the same. You can find it at my website, thesmartcookiecook.com. The next time you're looking for some perfect Polish eats, ask yourself this: what would the Smart Cookie cook?